how do you notice that people's sex life is lacking, even if they're having a lot of sex? Right? How do you notice that, like, what does that turn into for people? Maybe some of the athletes that you work with, but on a spiritual level, because you mentioned Tantra, and I want to segue this into potentially anything that you can share that has a higher and potentially esoteric notion to how we can work with sexual energy in ways that you're not going to find in textbooks or by watching Two and a Half Men or regular programming. So take it away.
Yeah, and just so you know, at some point, I need you to let me run to the toilet so I don't have wet pants here in a minute. But
Sure, no worries.
Well, here's a couple of things I want to share in that regard. One, what people don't often conceive of is that what they think of as sex energy is really what's called libido. And libido really is directly correlated with life force energy, or chi. So a person's sex energy is only as good as their libido. If you got a tiny little battery, it's not going to run your lights very long. If you got a great big battery, you can run your lights a long time. So if your libido is low because you don't practice, holistic health, you don't have 4 doctors, Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet to manage your values, then you can have tons of money and you can even want to have a lot of sex, but you have no libido. So the quality of the sex is going to be a direct reflection of the libido, because the lower your libido, the more stress you're under, the more sympathetic you are. And the act of ejaculation in a male is sympathetically driven. The act of maintaining an erection is parasympathetically driven. So if a person can't maintain a parasympathetic state, which is an open state, a state of connection, a state of reception, which is really best powered by love, then they're not going to be able to be a good performer sexually. So that leads to all sorts of gimmicks and tricks, from Viagra to, any number of things. But it also leads to a lot of insecurity. When women have that problem, what happens is their sex drive goes down and their vaginas dry out. So where a man has a hard time maintaining an erection, a woman starts losing her desire for sex, and the vaginal moisture begins to decrease because she's excess yang. She's got too much fire in her, so it dries her out. So the first step towards a healthy sex life is having enough libido. And libido is a product of how you manage your food, your hydration, your sleep, your breathing, your thinking, and your movement. Those are my 6 foundation principles. 3 of them are feminine. Nutrition, hydration, and sleep are yin. Breathing, thinking, and movement are more classically yang. And if those 2 don't balance, then you're out of balance. And the more out of balance you are, the more energy it takes just to keep you alive, because you're like an engine that's running very poorly, and an engine that runs poorly consumes a lot of gas, and it has a lot more wear and tear on it because it's not in harmony. So once you realize that sex energy is libido, and libido comes from self-management. And if you look at it, the word qi in Chinese actually means steam. Most people don't know that, but I study the languages that I'm studying, so I really understand their concept of the words. And if you look at what it means, to why they called life force energy, why it's really called steam, is because it's a nature-based philosophy. And what they know from nature is you can't have steam without earth. You have to have a pot to put water in. You have to have water to put in it. You have to have fire to make heat. And you have to have air for the steam to rise in. And lo and behold, when they're talking about chi, they're talking about our ability to manage earth, water, fire, and air. And a person who can't manage earth, water, fire, and air is somebody's patient, because earth is the things you eat and the things that are embodied. An animal's structure is earth. Muscle is earth. It's got lots of water in it because it has to have water in it to be alive. Fire is metabolism, and how you eat and the balance of the foods you eat determines whether you're metabolically efficient or whether you're got metabolic syndrome. And how you breathe is how you oxygenate the fire and metabolize and energize the system, be it the Krebs cycle or otherwise. So if you don't know how to manage earth, water, fire, and air, you're going to have low libido. And so your sex life is going to reflect that, and so is your mind. And so I think someone who's into Tantra is into learning to use the power of the sex stimulus to energize the libido so that it begins to rise up the spine as Shakti and Shiva dancing right along your spinal column, making love. And if you can get Shakti and Shiva up to your brain so that they have an orgasm together, then you will realize who and what you really are. And you don't even have to ejaculate. That's one of the key things about Tantra. It's not about blowing your load. It's about being fully present, not only with your lover, with yourself, and with the vital life force energies in you, and noticing that as your partner and you engage in a union experience and you support each other in this upwelling of life force energy, if you can use that to not ejaculate and to bring it up higher as you practice, then the wisdom of the second chakra opens to you. Then the wisdom of the third chakra opens to you. So the first chakra, you open to the wisdom of the earth element. Second, to emotion and the water element. First chakra is you open to the wisdom of what true safety and security is. Then you open up to what true connection is and flow is and rhythm is in your life. Then you open up to what it means to really step into your personal power as an individual. Then you open up into the fact that love is all there is, and love is the great harmonizing force, and love is really the mothering energy of nurture, growth, development. It's eros and it's agape. Then you open up into truly expressing yourself in relationship to yourself, others, persons, places, and things, expressing your creativity and giving voice to your truth. Then you open up to what your true inner capacity for vision is, which turns out to be endless. I'm a remote viewer, so I know, I can go anywhere because I can get here. And then you open up to the truth of what death is really all about. And when all 7 of those energy centers are open and you've used sex to do it, you've not only learned how God does it, but you've learned what sex energy is, and you've also learned how to really orient more on pleasuring your partner and sustaining this connection, sustaining eye contact, celebrating the beauty and the awesomeness of God sitting right in front of you. And then when you feel that the spiritual practice has been fulfilled, then you can finish the job if you want to. Then you can make a baby or if everybody's in harmony with it, ejaculate or finish it off. But, most people, when I was a kid on the farm, if you did a really good job, you might get a piece of cake. But most people today eat the cake and then they're too tired and lazy to do the job. So Tantra says, do the job and then eat the cake.
Interesting. That's really nice. And what's interesting about that is you're mentioning that there's a lower reward and a higher reward inside of it, and the higher reward takes a sophistication and nuance, more time, more discipline. The quick reward is obvious of sexual intercourse. The harder, the deeper trick is actually cultivating love in those moments, and not just putting the word love making on top of something that maybe had nothing to do with that, just two people masturbating each other with each other.
Yeah. banging meat together. You know, the thing too is I don't want to misrepresent Tantra. Sex is, I think there's like 113 precepts of Tantra, and sex is only one of them. So it's a very, very evolved aspect of Hinduism. And it's got teachings for the mind, for the emotions. I mean, it's a very, very deep philosophy. Most people only think of Tantra as a sexual thing, but it's really just a microcosm of the whole philosophy. It just so happens that from my experience of studying Tantra, they use anything as a path to growth and development. You know, it could be food, it could be exercise. It's really an approach that teaches you an understanding of consciousness and how to raise consciousness. And I love Tantra because it's not full of all this baggage about sex or food or whatever. It's really like, quit playing stupid games and get down to the real deal here. And here, you know, really what you find out is almost anything you can do is a path to God. You can become enlightened as a shoemaker. You can become enlightened as a butcher. You can become enlightened, you know, as a school teacher. You can become enlightened as a lover. You can become enlightened as a warrior. You know, it's really about realizing that it's all God, experiencing God. And without this, God can't know what it is. So when you realize that we're all God experiencing itself so that it can have its own self-realization, because really without consciousness in the middle, which requires an agency that's a mixture of unconscious and superconscious, God itself, you could say, is superconscious, which in quantum physics means you're trying everything at once simultaneously, which means you can't know anything. Because if you're doing everything at the same time, how do you know what you're doing? And you understand? If you're driving in every direction at once and I say, where are you going, Ben? You can't tell me the answer, can you?
No, it almost sounds like DMT. You know, you're experiencing pandemonium at once. And if somebody were to ask you, what are you feeling right now? The closest thing might be everything, you know, and also not that.
If they were to ask me when I'm doing full hit of DMT, they wouldn't get an answer because there would be no conversation to be had because I'd be in a non-dual experience. So that's the point. God at source is non-dual. So if you take a circle and divide it in half and make the bottom half dark like when the moon is dark and the top half light, you could say the superconscious is the top half and the unconscious is the bottom half. So God's creating all the time, just like you digest and metabolize and assimilate and eliminate, but don't know how the hell it's happening. You're just glad it is.
Right.
And on the top, God's just dreaming it all up at the same time. So the top of it is the dream, and the bottom of it is the embodiment of the dream. But neither of those two realizes what they're doing until somebody in the middle says, holy shit, look in the mirror. I see you. Who are you? How'd you get here?
Those are interesting aha moments. I know you have to take.
Oh, oh my God. And then you get why St. Francis of Assisi would say to people when they kept asking him, how do I find God? He would say, what you're looking for is what's looking. Yeah. But you got to be conscious to realize that. So you see, between the superconscious and the unconscious is all entities. Consciousness is, you know, Annika Harris beautifully says, to be conscious means that it's something it's like to be you. So if you ask a bumblebee, what's it like to be a bumblebee? It can tell you, but it can't tell you what it's like to be a dog. So a bumblebee is conscious as a bee. That doesn't mean they're better or worse than us. God, what would we do without the bees? So you're conscious when you know that there's something that it's like to be what you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we're at. We're right in the middle. And it's only through us or beings with our level of self-awareness that when you have an enlightenment experience and you say, oh my God, holy shit, I get it. Oh my God, it's so funny. It's amazing and it's the dirtiest, nastiest joke ever. God fucking digs all this evil and digs all this sex and digs all this spiritual stuff and digs all this food. God's so brave. God will do any fucking thing. And one day I said to God, why do you keep trying to kill yourself, referring to the people of the world? You know what God said back to me? I can't. I can't. And I said, I get it. And I cracked up laughing. He said, you think all these people are dying. He said, this is just a big show. This is how I play. Who do you think's wearing all these bodies? Who the hell do you think you are? You think you're Paul Chek? Look deeper, buddy. I can't die. I have no beginning and I have no end. I'm not even a thing. I am no thing that is everything. I cannot possibly die. It's just, what experience do you want to have? If you want to kill yourself slowly, let's do it. I've done it a lot of times, but if you want to try something new, I'm up for that too. It's far more fun to live than it is to die. That's why you came here. But the deep teaching was, I can't. And that's my point. The other point is, God's in no hurry for us to be enlightened, because what do you do then? Right?
Make sure you all head over to benjosephstewart.com, become a member. You'll have access to the growing library of deeper dives where I talk about all the stuff that I really can't talk about on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the Discord chat. That's where a lot of the conversation is happening, talking about new theories, being able to interweave into the greater conversation that is how we awaken infinity. That's our highest potential. And I just want to remind you, you are the most powerful technology ever known to creation. Wield it like an artist with a conscience.